Welcome to another episode of the Bali Business Review. This week we're going to go explore Kuta and Seminyak during peak season at the beginning of July to see how things are going for the local economy. Drive the streets and fly the skies above Bali to look for proxy indicators of economic activity. We're going to compare whether or not the tourism sector is doing healthy, populations of people on the beach, occupancy levels of the different areas around what we can see, in order to put facts and reality together. Don't want to miss this episode as we explore whether or not peak season is really happening here in Bali. One of the most strategic corners here in Kuta is this junction right here. We call this the Horseman Junction because there's a statue of, I think it's the charioteer Arjuna riding into battle in the Mahabharata. Anyhow, this junction right here, this T-junction, is where all inbound airport traffic and outbound airport traffic will need to cross through. This is pretty much the bottleneck choke point to the airport. Today is July 1st, 2026. And based on just what I see here, there are no traffic jams, there's no congestion, and it is pretty weak for a peak season. So it's not the end all of a weak peak season. We're of course going to go on and explore the beach, the malls, and other areas where we would expect to find visitors. But judging from just the light traffic right here at this very critical intersection, it's hard to say. Another critical observation happens to be this. These billboards are fairly strategically placed close by the airport, but if you'll pay attention to them, they are all advertising Indonesian products rather than international products or even Balinese experiences or hotels right here in what should be some of the highest visibility areas for people who are coming into Bali. What that tells us is that advertisers have now decided it is no longer worthwhile to advertise hotels or experiences or beach clubs on large billboards here, or the rent is too high because simply eyeballs are not looking at ads in real life. Eyeballs are probably looking at what's online. And this is similar on multiple locations all around the airport and all around Bali where we see empty billboards, as 2026 is probably a pretty good year to really understand the progression of advertising has really moved online. Krishna Bali Ole Ole is actually a pretty good proxy indicator for travel, especially for those that are coming as domestic visitors. The reason is because Ole Ole means souvenir, and it's a custom in many Asian cultures, but in particular, I think this is something that the Japanese imparted upon Indonesian culture to get just a collection of, not very expensive gifts so that your colleagues who have been apparently covering for your holiday are rewarded to endure the extra burden they must endure during your absence. So kind of empty in here, as you can see. There's not a lot of shoppers. And what's to be noted also is in the parking lot, there's not a lot of tour buses. This kind of is a must-do stop for, once again, a lot of domestic tourists. In fact, when I first came to Bali, I was really thrilled to bring back some of these gifts. In fact, that's how I met my wife there, incidentally at a gift shop. But these days, the actual traffic is a little bit lighter. And here's an insight. So if you were wondering why they put these little stickers on your shoulder or whatever, it's basically to tag the attribution of commission. That's right, everyone. Bali works on kickbacks. And so the way the kickback works is whoever brought you into the store gets a commission for bringing you there at the time of purchase. So usually they'll take this and cash register will register which number it belongs to, and then that party gets a little reward for whatever time you've done shopping. I guess the deal these days is that not a lot of people are shopping for these gifts. And one of my theories, if you know anything, you can comment below in my video, is that, There's nothing really that special about getting souvenirs in Bali anymore. These souvenirs are readily available in most supermarkets already in Jakarta or Surabaya or wherever you're coming from domestically. I guess some traditions die hard and they continue. But looking at this as a proxy indicator doesn't look very strong for domestic tourism here in July now. This is fascinating. This used to be a very large hotel right here in Kuta, but now it's over. It's all boarded up and blocked, and who knows? What I've been seeing is that some really good locations in Kuta are being demolished right now and rebuilt with new tenants or new visions. And I think this is an important trend. And the reason why it's important is because Kuta strategically, despite its terrible culture and its very absentee landlord mindset, still offers a very strategic position and actually a very good beach compared to many other areas. So I guess when Kuta's ready to be reborn, then maybe there's a chance to actually see increased investment opportunities here. But in the meantime, this is pretty much the lay of the land: for rent and empty. Low occupancy for commercial businesses. It's a real shame. Okay, I just passed by Joger, which is it's actually an institution. It's been here for a long time. They sell funny t-shirts, comical t-shirts. They're empty, really empty, as you can see from the front. Normally it would be packed full of parking buses and, you know, like a mad sprawl of people, but today, no such luck. Okay, let's go down this main avenue here in Kuta towards the Discovery Mall. It used to be kind of a thriving hotbed of activity, but these days, well, let's see what the streets tell us, yeah? Oh, right away, this is a fun new landmark, these party buses. Party bus! All right, let's see if we can get these people to wave at us, yeah? These party buses are getting kind of like their mainstay here. Yo! Okay, all right, not into it. Let's keep on going straight and see what we see. A gigantic sports bar that's empty during the World Cup. Maybe no games are happening. Seafood restaurant, also fairly empty. Continuing on towards another sports bar up here. This is Matilda, empty, and nothing really to report on this. Whoa, this section is just dead. It looks like, okay, there's a little bit of a, oh, we're waiting for this lady on the bike to pedal through right now. This is a new trend. A lot of Indian restaurants are opening up here in Kuta. Another empty souvenir shop. Waterbomb Park is over on my left. I can't tell if they're operational. I don't see any slides. Okay. We have a little bit of congestion here. This is just 2 cars in the front, so no traffic. Wow. Okay, this is Discovery Mall. It looks completely dead and abandoned. Normally in years past, there would be like hundreds of people just milling about like ants up and down these stairs. But these days, it's really empty. Here's a security guard standing inside. Here's a row of Rucos that look like they're about to be demolished. Kartika Plaza Hotel up ahead. When I first came to Bali, this was like the thriving Las Vegas. It was like equivalent to the Las Vegas Strip. This was it. There would be like millions of people probably up and down this street over the course of a month. But these days, I think I can count the number of pedestrians with my hand, probably one hand. Over here is turning into a little India. There's a large density of Indian restaurants on both sides of the road. They're not very good. I went to eat at all of them. Queen's Tandoor is overpriced for Indian food. I've been to Singapore. There's great Indian food for cheap. It does not need to be expensive. They basically, here, let me stop for a moment and kind of explain what's happening with the Indian restaurant phenomenon. So what's happening with the Indian restaurants here in Kuta and all throughout Bali is that they seem to feed off of, believe it or not, Indian tourists that can't get used to eating local food, Indonesian food or any other food. So that is a pretty strong sign of first-time travelers. So basically they can overcharge because they know that the comfort food is so-called the only food that Indian diaspora travelers are going for. So that kind of explains what we're seeing over here in the proliferation of expensive, mediocre Indian restaurants. A tourist trap. It's a tourist trap for Indians. Hey, normally I would actually ask you to watch an ad for Book It Vista, but today I need some help. So last week I had a mislaunch with a really funny satire episode about dumb ways to calculate return on investment. If you're buying a leasehold property in 2026, it's something that you really don't want to miss, because I share really good advice about how not to get fooled by improper ROI calculations that many people have lost hundreds, if not millions of dollars on. So you definitely want to watch that. Okay, the view inland looks pretty crappy. Let's go over to the beach and see if there's more activity of tourism on the beach. We've reached the Hard Rock Hotel over here on the left, and okay, a little bit better. There's some activity on the beach. I do see some people walking around who look like visitors, and maybe we can move up the beach a little bit to see what we see. Yeah, there are some people walking around, okay. But pretty empty though, not like crowded, not peak season for sure. I'm on the Kuta beach. Okay, I can't fly the drone here because it is too close to the airport, but here's my observations. Occupancy for beach chairs is really low, and that's a really good proxy indicator for tourists, because locals don't use deck chairs. They just usually sit on the sand. But despite the deck chairs being empty, there's quite a lot of activity in surf. I count out there in the water, but yeah, there's about 3 or 4 dozen people out there on longboards learning to surf. And there's a few people like right over here behind me learning also how to surf. So we've reached a section of the beach called Legian, and I'm going to try something probably shouldn't do, but let's give it a shot. We're gonna put the drone on follow mode, and I'll ride the motorbike and see what we can see. You'll be able to see the larger picture, and I also do this on my other series called Jalan Jalan. If you haven't seen any of those, I'd advise watch it. It's a more longer form, in-depth business sort of interpersonal intelligence episode. But anyways, I'll put the drone up in the sky so you guys can take a look at what it looks like here up in the air flying over the Legian area. Okay, so I've got the drone tracking me behind, and let's go for a fly and see what we can see. So hopefully I don't crash the drone. I hate crashing drones, it's so expensive. This part of Legian, as we can see, is pretty quiet right now. There's some motorbikes parked here, but I believe they mostly belong to people who work here rather than actual tourists, right? Let's go a little bit further and see what we can see. And this is following me through Legian at the moment, which is awesome. We can see that there's a hotel over here on the Padma, actually the Padma Legian, okay? Some people there. I guess if we're curious, we can get a higher altitude look. You'll have to excuse me if I seem a little bit nervous right now. I am. I always get nervous when I have a drone on follow mode. Right, the insight that I can see from the ground here is it's pretty light, not a lot of people. In fact, I'll stop right here because I think we've kind of maxed out what we can see on the streets again. We'll take it for a closer look by getting onto the beach. Okay, as per my usual habit, I decided to stop to get a coconut. And this is Nate's Place. They're just a local business here. Anyhow, flying up and down the beach, shocking, absolutely shocking. It's the 1st of July, it's supposed to be peak season, and the occupancy of this beach looks almost as terrible as it did back in May, which was traditionally the low season. Now, I haven't checked the airport stats yet to see if there's more flights coming at this point in July than May. Let's take a moment to look at the flight stats. So this July 1st, we have 403 arrivals and departures in 2026. The stats for May were different, and they show in May the range was between 366 and lower, but 366 was the peak for arrivals and departures. So yes, there's actually more arrivals now coming in July than in May, which is even more surprising because why is this beach as empty in July as May, even though there's more flights coming in? But my suspicion is that it can't be that good. I mean, you could argue that people are inside their villas and they're just not wanting to come out in the sun. But I mean, what's the point of a beach holiday if you're just going to come out at night too, right? Maybe that makes sense for Asian visitors, but for a lot of Western visitors, is a bit senseless. So I've been flying up and down, and you can see some of these places are entirely empty. There's not a single patron at all in them, and they have hundreds of beanbag chairs just spread throughout the sand that are empty. Some places have a few more, but overall the scene is pretty empty. I'm not sure if people come back during the sunset, but also I've chosen specifically today, July 1st is a Wednesday, so hopefully that also reduces the noise. What I mean by noise is a lot of times on the weekends, local residents from Denpasar and other residential areas of Bali will also come to the beach, but then that skews the actual economic activity proxy indicators, because we're looking at people who are not actually adding to tourism travel. They're pretty much just people enjoying their own neighborhoods. Okay, that's a wrap from this sky patrol around the Legian, 66 and Kuta area. It's a little bit underperforming as a region now in peak season of 2026. If you like this episode, come with us next week as we explore a different part of Bali, perhaps South Kuta, the region of Uluwatu, Bingin, Unlisan, Pachatu, Malasti Beach, Pandawa. And in weeks following, we'll also go visit Canggu, Ubud, and other parts of Bali again to explore if new emergent areas of Bali are taking off and growing faster. If you're looking for investment strategy advice, this is the right place. So follow and subscribe to watch more episodes of Brilliant Market Insights.